Welcome, welcome, welcome to another adventure into reality. Come on in, come on, get sat in the Adventure in Reality Lounge Room. Come on, everyone, get into the chat room. Alrighty. We all have unique talents in this world. And there are times that I meet some very young geniuses, ones that really have the potential to change the world. And I want to be able to share some of this unique genius with you. So I'm going to bring on Andre Hodge here. Andre and I have been doing many videos together. And we're going to talk a little bit about the weather, multidimensionality. So we're going to bring on Andre real quick.
We don't have Andre.
All right. So let's bring on Santo.
Oh,
There we go.
Hey Santo, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Andrew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good today. I saw you had a big question in there in the chat room. Did you want to give us a little good set of questions for people?
Yeah, I'd like that, Andrew. Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of questions these days. One I'd like to run by you, Andrew, is you often say that tomorrow is just another day, that nothing will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that in terms of the context that you keep reinforcing to us. But I've heard from numbers that wake-up time is kind of a key part of what we are going through. And October is, I don't, want to put times in that, but it kind of seems to be a period of trying to wake up as humanity.
Mm-hmm.
The question is are these major cosmic wake-up events actually written into the Akashic Records?
No.
That's no. Okay.
No.
So if they're not, I'm just trying to understand the relationship of major events in the Akashic Records. Are they only written and read afterwards as humanity uses its collective free will to understand them?
Beautiful question. The immediate answer is nothing is set in stone until it's set in stone, and then the next generation affirms it's set in stone. And then is it passed on to the generation after that? Because we are a time travel based species, the Akashic Record reflects many potentials. That's why there's many timelines in existence here. And we are still in a hierarchical perspective that our timeline is any more important than any other timelines. All the timelines are equally important. That's part of the strategy of the bogging down of the system, which is to make every timeline, fake or real, valid in the greater equation of awakening. That's why it's a global infrastructure of distraction that leads people into sub-realities that have sub-realities of belief within it. And that is a reflection in the Akashic Record. The Akashic Record isn't seen as a global news channel, live 24/7. It can be viewed that way, but your level of accuracy in it is virtually near zero. It's at no more than a 1.25% level of accuracy because it is only potentiality. And sometimes potentials are activated and then a year later they're deactivated because the personalities can't maintain the projection into the ancient future. That's why when we have an awakening, it takes a while for it to get moving because those that have awakened and those that are still awakening come to figure out how to work together in the reality in a network of personalities that are driving forward a topic that is like a bulldozer that keeps scraping stuff away from in front of it until it meets a mountain and has to bulldoze the way it's around the mountain, just like building the roads through the mountains.
So if the, like you say, the proverbial kicking of the can down the road is not just tactical, but a major strategy that the system of domination and control has perfected.
Yep.
The art of kicking. If this keeps happening and the response, like you say, the bulldozer effect can't be built up to respond to this kind of kicking down the can strategy, does it eventuate where we eventually dissolve as a species if we aren't able to build that bulldozer effect, and it is the equivalent of what you've described as timeline genocide?
We can build the bulldozer effect. We can. And I will use an example. Are you familiar with an internet talk show host named Joe Rogan?
Yes.
So he gets 19 million downloads a day. A day.
Yes.
He has more power than the President of the United States as an individual who built his network and used his bulldozer to get 1,017 shows.
The difficulty is with the Joe Rogans and alternate media is trying to understand who's pulling whose strings. So are they genuinely...
I use him as an example because he was the first personality podcast that ventured into multiple formats. He's an MMA announcer. He was on Fear Factor. He was on The Man Show. He's been in movies, and he's a stand-up comedian and a martial artist. So his unique skill set and perception and talents are what made him marketable in all of those things, that had his own investment dollars and tour schedule that continuously promoted himself. What I'm saying is the bulldozer is easy. It's the personal investment in time and the team that's around you with spiritual hygiene that ultimately determines the quality of the bulldozer. Now, I use this for my own perception also. I have made the level of attention that I've wanted to make. Do I want 1 million views? Honestly, at times, no, because I already know of the 90% drive-by nature of listeners. The people that are here is because they truly want to learn. If I've changed one person, I've already succeeded. When we go to work with larger volumes, the team, the inner core of the team must have that spiritual hygiene as well as focus that the team is driving it, because the team has to be audience members also. I mean, you may not realize what it takes to put on a show. There's Robert here. There's 2 marketing people, Jen, the background technical wizard, Debbie, our HR department. You know, that all is what makes it go. All of those other podcast people, they have the exact same thing. Investing in just advertising dollars will literally make that bulldozer effect. It's how you capture the people, retain the people, and ultimately give them what it is they're looking for, that isn't instant gratification, but authentic teachings that grab them to want to be in discipline with them. That's the bulldozer effect. That means there's hundreds of bulldozers behind you. That's what determines how far you can push into the future, making a solid reel now and a solid reel from now till days or weeks or months into the future. Just as I've said, you know, you've heard me talk about sending treatments of healing forwards and backwards in time to yourself. The team metaphorically does that on their own through their power and belief in it, as well as the current audience members. That determines the potency of global presence.
Yes, it seems to be such a discipline, such a focus that's required, that just a very, very small application of what you're talking about just gives a very small glimpse into what it would take. And as a result, sometimes it's not that you get despondent, you just see that it's such a big effort to hold that space. Not just create, but to be able to hold it with all of the challenges that are day-to-day challenges or distractions or interventions or trolling. It seems overwhelming to me sometimes.
By the end of this year, I will have done 157 live shows. Who has the endurance to do 157 live shows out there? Yeah. There are many that think that you could be in this chair or be the co-host. Sure, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 shows. What about show number 34? Or show number 78? Or show 113? Right?
And how does,
Go ahead.
sorry, and how does that translate then to the repetitive nature of the material and information whilst being able to remain positive and seeing that bulldozer move? I can't understand being in that position.
So, very good question. So, and this is a behind the scenes answer. When I have a co-host or I have someone like you that's driving forward a conversation, there is co-creation. It isn't me as a singularity, as a class A tiger personality driving forth the show, the frequency. It allows other points of view in. I'm naturally a non-competition, equal co-creation, non-duality, separate, non-separation, dreaming I am being. So I'm not ever competing with you or in a hierarchical system. I'm always amplifying what you are saying physically, non-physically, and amplifying what I'm saying physically and non-physically. It's that palpable feeling of why people come and listen to me in the first place. That's that no-time field.
It's translating that outside of the, oh wow, it's another Adventures into Reality, this is going to be nice to tune in and listen,
Right.
to the translation into the reality that is our individual lives. That can be challenging. You know, it's like the metaphor would be being a very good musician going on stage and then being able to hold the equivalent of that energetic state and translate it into day-to-day life without having this isolated feeling or inability to co-create. It's like you said, it's that co-creative spirit, effort, feeling that seems to wane in the day-to-day challenges.
Right. Look at the chemistry of each show. You know, last year I had, you know, Kathy as a co-host, an outstanding time. But, you know, she ran into a time in her life where she had to focus something. A very close friend of Kathy and I passed, Natalie, Natalie was my co-host too. And look at the chemistry we had there, the chemistry I had with Chris or JP. Those shows are timeless because everyone's a signature frequency teaching of the moment. Everyone. Every caller, every little chirp in the background is something to the manifestation. And I'm very aware of it every time I do a show. You've been listening a long time. You've heard me say before I go on a show, I peek into the future. The line of potentiality. How much show will this show have an impact on the global narrative? Seen and unseen. This show, I already know, has a gigantic impact on the unseen global narrative. And I've known that since October 31st, 2012, when I did my first live show, when I understood I couldn't be a monk or a hermit in the mountain anymore, that I had to put a sign that said up for business. And any master that wasn't able to put up a sign up for the business would go back to sleep and continue battling the shadow until such a time they accepted their self-illumination. I mean, frankly, I could have sold out and had selling pills and all this other stuff, advertising for trucks and cars. I could have been on this FM station, that FM station, under their rules with their control of the content. Okay, I couldn't do 2/3 of the medical diagnosis stuff that I do, the truth and authentic stuff. Okay, I'd have to severely edit. I'm one of the few self-produced, self-funded, all the way since the beginning.
Yeah, and that's what gives it that potency, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. You know, you hear me, you know, saying the potency of presence every now and then. I choose to be a potent, present, I am personality. And when you come to these live show energies, many of you have that palpable feeling of whatever it is the authenticness connects to, whatever word it is that's here, whatever brings you back. You know, so many say it's the volume of the material I put out, the breadth of what I can cover. And when we get a chance for Andre to come on, he was there since the very beginning. He was my first, you know, radio producer on Revolution Radio. He was the one that got inundated with thousands of calls after those big sessions with when I was on air with all the different, when the things were going crazy with the Walking in Energy shows, the JP show, and then the big show that I did with I forgot who all it was.
Chris Hyatt?
No, Kevin Smith. Because that was the first time I was on 390 terrestrial radio stations. And I was the first psychic he had on in 9 years since he had a major issue and blow up with Sylvia Brown. So it was a gigantic thing for him to bring me on his network at that time. And my radio, my radio station guy, Dave Corso, knew him very well and recommended me to have him on. He had actually come into some of the live shows I'd done and listened to me for quite a few shows before he had called and had me on the show. And then we became fast friends where 2-3 nights a week when he wasn't doing his show, we'd be talking, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. You know, when you have, you know, honestly, Dave Corso was a spook. All right, he was a CIA agent at the beginning and at the end there. You know, he had long since left that organization, but he was in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, you know, a spook. And so was Kevin. And when you hear those guys talk shop, and I would translate what they say, and they would ask, how the hell do you know that? No one should know that stuff. They knew how the reality worked. Kevin Smith died for a reason, because he put his head in the wrong place.
Exactly. And that's the kind of that complex, multidimensional nature of beings. And speaking of that and those type of people, that at face value, you have no idea of the breadth and depth of their journey experiences. In this complex point that we've arrived at, AI seems to be such a big kind of meme, but from your perspective, what are these major dots and of this AI agenda, and how do they fit together? You know, we hear so much about big dots like transhumanism or black goo or hot mind or mind control, DNA modification.
All that is trying to pitch a sale so you placebo believe in it.
Okay.
Before it actually is rolled out as an accepted reality physical function. They're still just pitching a sale on you. They got to be able to pitch the sale for 2 to 3 generations to make impact. As I was just saying before, nothing is set in stone until many generations set it in stone. How far out of the old natural ways are we? Well, industrialization was the late 1800s to 1900s. If we really put it, the 60s was its own generations, the 80s was its own generation, and then the year 2000s, you know, the late 2010 to 2015 is the third generation of out of, you know, where most people didn't have, you know, flush toilets, so on and so forth worldwide, even though we still have much of a third world aspect to this world. You know, the potentiality of learning is vastly different. So they've got to pass it on at least another 2 generations for the colloquial now to accept transhumanism as its own placebo belief function in the global narrative. And AI is one of those things that's trying to manage 3 generations into the future belief.
So it's a deep-seated program that
Yes.
becomes our belief system. Okay.
Yes.
So speaking of that belief system, where does the tree of life or the flower of life, or however it's put, fit in to, and the sacred mathematics behind it, behind the relationship to manifestation in this reality? Have mystery schools and these AIs, have they got some sort of knowledge that has perverted and inverted the tree of life for manifestation purposes?
Yes.
And it's something we...
Yes.
Do we need to wake up to an understanding of manifestation at that level in order to regain our power, so to speak? Or will it be used against us continually while we don't understand the power of sacred mathematics and geometry and
sacred linguistics too? So there's a whole soup in that question you just asked. Everything still comes down to the global belief factor. And they're trying to manage all the different global, like India has a different set of global beliefs than America has a different set of global beliefs. Canadians have a different global belief than those from South Africa. And the Russians have a different global belief than the Germans. All of those are managed. That's one of the reasons why if you're in one country, you can't watch videos. Like a lot of my videos are blocked in Israel. 3/4 of my video are blocked in Russia. Canada can only get certain topics of videos. Yeah, quite literally. My videos, which aren't that level of global impact, can't be watched by certain personalities. Now, in more in-depth part of your question, here is where humans must make irrelevant even the old definitions of what sacred geometry was, will be, or is. Because what we've been taught about it is 1/10 of its truth, mired in fallacies and reinterpreted by thousands of generations who have been managing, who haven't realized a global narrative has been managed over many thousands of years based off of our race amnesia. And there are certain things that allow into a reality to trigger race amnesia. Like this whole Atlantis and Lemuria thing. They knew that they couldn't get beyond it, so they made sure that it was in the global reality as a topic of discussion, as well as disassociation from family members if you went into the woo-woo topics. Divide, compartmentalize. Divide and compartmentalize. Does that help?
Yes, it certainly does. It becomes, it's not difficult, it's not the right word. The understanding of what trajectory to take or pathway to broaden the disciplines, and it's hard to know how far down the rabbit hole. A generic concept that you reinforce about heart space can be tuned into very easily, but going down the path of understanding what the fetus in the womb and the resonance and its relationship to our DNA, and for example, listening to some of Dan Winter's perspectives on that resonance and its connection to the RNA DNA actual binding and the happiness and health of the DNA tied to the resonance of the heart. It's interesting to see whether that processing of that information at a conscious level gives a big step in terms of becoming more resonant. In other words, a self-feeding cycle of understanding beyond the words of fetus in the womb, or the fetus in the
So
heart.
when it comes to the resonance process, the repetition part of the fetus in the womb is so that there can be cyclical illumination. If one does not have a repetitive returning to where you began, how will you conquer race memory? Your race memory there was complete before you went through the forgetting of the birth canal. That's the cyclical process of being human. So a new I am is created each lifetime with the individuated purpose of being an agenda-driven I am being in that frequency of time. And then when that being passes on, it passes on the legacy. And then there's the potentials. When the new I am comes into beingness, it's going to pick up the blueprint of what all the previous ones have done, but they're just blueprints because we're the living algorithm. Like when you have a building built, you have a set of blueprints, and then when you actually go to build it and the carpenter's off by an inch on everything, it's different. And going back to the fetus in the womb and a cyclical, repetitive, illuminary process is to go back to the original blueprint and say, hey, where did I veer off a course? And what did I learn by veering off course? Okay? And then the other side of generic heart space awareness, just by cyclically returning to the fetus in the womb, is a resonance of connection to the fetus and the infinite being. And then when we begin to repeat that process as part of an auric-based, emanation, we begin to imprint into our reality that's the type of being we are. Now, how do you get past base placebo into full belief? Practice that has a self-illumination, that has the joy to more self-illumination, because you're picking up patterns and moments and things that say, oh, I'm on the right path. And you look at the mirror and you wink at yourself.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Andrew, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I wish we're on the other side of this globe down in Australia, and I wish it was easier for us to get to your event. Unfortunately, we won't make it this time, but I'm sure we'll figure out a way to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
thank you.
Yeah, very much. So just hold on the line. I want to bring Andre Hodge in here real quick, because he's been familiar with the material for a long time. So just stay on the line, Santo.
Sure.
Okay, Andre's on.
Andre Hodge, are you there? Yeah, everyone in the audience, you'd be surprised what it takes technically to make a call-in show as a live stream with video. You have no idea what it actually takes.
But it's brilliant. You know, like who would have thought that on this side of the world, on a chemmed out, dry day in Queensland, I'm speaking to Andrew on the other side of the world, and I have no idea how wet or dry it is.
It's wet today.
Amazing.
It's wet today.
We've got unbelievable dryness over in Australia here. It's the worst it's ever been.
Yeah.
And
because they put the water back into the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everything's see, global warming is a big bait and sell thing. It's global redistribution of water is what it is. When the ice caps melt, where's the water going to go? It's got to be redistributed. And guess what? It's not just the surface redistribution. This Hurricane Irma that has just gone over Florida and all the way through the Appalachian Mountains, well, all those mountains are sucking up that water, and it's going deep, 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 deep. Deep earth water, yeah.
It's interesting because my son is actually the musical director on the Royal Caribbean ship lines, and he's currently in the Caribbean. And they already had to deal with the issue of Hurricane Irma, and they've had to forego St. Martin Island. They said it was absolutely devastating. They brought people on, and they're currently going through the problem with Hurricane Maria, where their base port is Puerto Rico, and they will have to forego that by the looks because they think that Puerto Rico is going to be a problem for docking, and they have to.
Puerto Rico is going to be a direct Category 4 hit. So Maria just destroyed Dominican Republic. Right. It just flattened. It is an absolute utter devastation. Absolute utter devastation. Puerto Rico is going to get hit with a Cat 4. What's that going to mean in the end? That city is going to be challenged with flooding, storm surge, and then it has to go through the eye wall, and then the other side of the island is going to get hit by storm surge too. So wherever there's vacation spaces that have, Puerto Rico's already been majorly in economic depression, they're going to be bankrupt at the end of that. The American government actually had to bail out Puerto Rico. I believe it was June this year because it was going to go in default. It's not a state, it's an annexation. Like Guam.
Exactly.
Right.
So I don't know whether Andre's been sucked up into a vortex, but I'm not sure.
Hey mate, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Andre. How are you doing today?
I am good, mate. Thanks for the last minute request to come in and me not using this program before. No gremlins or anything. It's just me and my lack of technical skill.
And user error.
Yeah. I just because I do a lot of recordings with Andrew, we actually tried to look at our computers and change speakers and microphones, and I got a bit too advanced, mate. It was pretty basic, so it was me. I used to have this because I used to be an IT engineer. There was a a particular acronym for a problem called PEDKEC, which is problem exists between the keyboard and the mouse. And it's the
Yep.
person that's driving it. PEDKEC. So, thanks.
End user error, same thing, MKEB.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised the type of people that can't find a single button on the website. Anyways.
It's good to be here with you, mate. Thanks for asking me on, and thank you for letting me run shotgun with you again. So,
thanks a lot. So, Andre, you know, we've done the weather series, which is about to be the second and third, sorry, the third and fourth part are about to be released. You know, I think all in all, we've filmed, what, 103 videos so far? 106?
Yeah, I actually made the 100th on Monday, and I'm looking through more to create more. And the way it works out is Andrew pretty much gives me free reign to go through all the old stuff. And it's a bit like I've made this documentary series called Conscious Explorer in the past. And when I was looking for themes, what I would do is I'd actually have all the adventure into reality shows from 2013 on my mobile phone, and I'd sleep to it and I'd put it on random. And what I'd do is, like, things would just trigger me to wake up in the middle of the night, and it would be some random call from May or June or April, and it would be on a theme, say colonics or whatever, and all of a sudden I'd be waking up to all this colonic talk and different shows, and my sleep would actually find the topics that I do, if that makes sense, mate. I haven't actually shared that before, but it'd be really cool for you to have how I sort of work, you know, like you give me free reign and I just go with it and see what gets revealed. And like I just made part 7 of that weather series.
Yeah.
And what I did, I just went back into the walking in energy shows, and you talk about a time where you went to the San Andreas fault line with 8,000 drummers.
Yep. And
you talk about a group of drummers, group of dancers and energy workers getting together and changing the reality. It was fantastic. It was like random. Like I got off the theme of what I was listening to, and I wanted to go listen to something else, and it was there. It was beautiful, you know. So that's sort of what I've been doing.
So we are going to be releasing these videos quite a bit over the next couple months now to get people on a different avenue of perceiving our reality. One of the other little series we did was the industrial age, where we got in depth into the nature of why drugs in our system, and how very much the industrial age was controlled by, you know, the mechanics of the drug use, the opium wars, and then the different forms of technology that were being used and abused at that era.
Yeah. I mean, you had a caller, I think, maybe not this recent week, the week before, and she called about methadone and the impact on that. And what those sort of things do with Andrew is just trigger for more potential, because he's basically infinite and he just needs the people to ask the questions. And I was having a good chat with him and Annette O'Toole of the Sending Starseed blog, who's like a veteran as well. It's done 14,000 posts on her blog, and she's had experience in that. And basically what Andrew was saying is that it's not just this recent time, it's been a consistent theme throughout history for hierarchical control, that there's been an avenue of sort of influence with some sort of substance that's created, and it's got to be relative to the reality at the time as well. So as consciousness and the reality shifts, a bit like the industrial era that's led to this technological era, it's just a consistent theme that's impacted us, and we've been in an unawareness of the effect. We've been in it. So like a horse with blinkers on. So it's fascinating, mate. We're sort of weaving some sort of pattern of some understanding, and because I've done a lot of stuff with you, my aim is to actually just create themes that people can sort of apply and take a bit further in what's going on. And the weather is a really good example of that, because we're aware of it. It's in our awareness all the time, and there feels to be a big gap in what's actually going on, and that's your role to fill that gap. So it's a real privilege to operate with you at the moment, mate. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. You know, we're going to be doing the continuing series on the weather as the weather here in the States change, and then, you know, you begin to have your rainy seasons come on in the other areas. We're going to see another global redistribution of water. And then we're going to have a variety of other weather-based issues apply for the European country. So the irony is there are a variety of hurricanes that have gone up the East Coast, even if they were just out in the ocean or broke up over the mountains, that actually reform into northern section tropical storms. And you're actually seeing sections of Irma reform into tropical storm force right off the British and French coasts. So you're going to see an unusual amount of water redistribution into Europe come November, December 2017, January, February 2018, which will then be a snow event that will be based around the European corridor into the Baltics. Major redistribution of water. Whether it's in the form of snow or rain, doesn't matter. It's a redistribution of water. So there is going to, in these upcoming shows that we're going to be releasing, is what can you do about it? There's an unseen world that's out there in these weather patterns. And in the first video, we talked about how to, in that first weather video, how to see these storms as karmic resolution. Did we lose you, Andre?
Yeah, I was just processing what you were saying. It was pretty interesting. And I guess, well, maybe what I can do, mate, because I'm pretty thorough with the stuff that's to be released, and you can pretty much go anytime on anything. To me, what the third one was with a guy called Sean Bond. If you haven't heard him, he's pretty expansive. And then the next four are with Annette O'Toole, who actually works with the weather in Hawaii. So she's actually got experience. Mm-hmm. And what they sort of do, they're good because they've got their own frequencies and they offer different avenues of information from Andrew as well. And I can just go with anyone. And what the key is with these sort of next ones is our ancestral relationship with the weather, whether it be ship captains or weather wizards or say a Native American or something like that had a relationship to the weather because they exist, and they're all throughout history is the high potential that you've actually had experience with mastering the weather in a past life. So it's in that race amnesia sort of thing that Andrew's sort of here to resolve. And it's really fascinating because if we feel how we feel potentially about the reality at the moment, it's not actually accurate. You've actually had mastery of many things. And what Andrew's sort of here to do is actually remind us of our race amnesia that we forgot because the wiping of our memory when we're born and stuff like that. And when you hear it from Andrew, it's the potential to connect that past, to activate it and stuff. So it's actually a potential in your physical body because your body is a technology. So that's the really powerful thing that I get from the next ones, mate, that are yet to be released, because it's reminding us of our power. That's basically the common theme of a lot of stuff that I do with you, you know?
You know, over all the years that you've been listening, you've seen a lot of the pattern recognition. And then when you and I are off air, you know, you have this conversation with me, you're not in radio voice, and then subtly I will turn into radio mode. And you try to encourage me not to be in radio mode when I'm talking. These are like these raw type recordings.
Yeah, I was forming a metaphor of what it's like I can perceive from your perspective. And I actually worked this out the last couple of days. It's, if you imagine like standing before a glacier, and a glacier moves, you know, really slowly and stuff, but its volume is immense. Imagine Andrew just standing in front of a glacier, and it's just, the glacier is the volume of data constantly coming at him. And my attitude with you, mate, is that even though you need downtime and stuff like that, there's still a responsibility that you've got to actually share some stuff, you know? You've got it coming and it may not come ever again because it's so much. And I'm just around and it's in a neutral space, and it's not, you know, not me asking me questions about me. It's what is best for the moment with
Right.
him as a component of it. You know what I mean? It's not to push you or anything. It's just to give you a space where someone doesn't want to know everything. You know what I mean? But I can tell when you're in, you've got into a frequency, and let's just explore it. That's what's there. And
Wow.
it's been an interesting year, that's for sure.
I mean, there are times that, you know, our conversations go, you know, to unpublishable spaces.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff I've done is, you know, they're probably tough gristle to chew on from the truth perspective if you don't have any context.
Yep.
And my attitude is, you know, you talk about how much I've done and how much I've been around, and there is one video that hasn't been released, and it's like a hindsight, present and future sort of chat. It was a recording that I did, the Wonder Woman sort of recording with Andrew, and he was in pretty expansive mode at that time. And basically, I forgot the point I was coming to, but it was just what it was about was basically what I said to him in that conversation was, what if someone actually knew a lot about his stuff and asked him questions? To me, that was a gap in their reality. Yeah. Like, you talk about stepping up to the mantle of responsibility, and in that you actually mention your level of awareness is your level of responsibility. So if I'm aware of a lot of stuff, I've actually got a responsibility to sort of engage it if I'm in this privileged space with you. Because it's not about, you know, Andrew charging a lot of money for getting people to have a reading and stuff like that. It's not about money. A lot of that money with Andrew goes back into just making sure you can actually release a lot of this stuff for free. You know, it's tough to run a business and, you know, look after people and stuff like that he needs support from. The key is the key with the money is about people, when they're not sovereign, is that they don't tend to value stuff that's free.
That's right.
And if there's sort of this barrier with Andrew, it's like you really value that time and get to the point with him and stuff like that. So to me, it's like, I value your time and your space, and right now I'm the right match for you. My attitude is like, I'm hoping to create the potential for future people that haven't revealed themselves to ask the questions that I don't know.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like the thing with introducing Sean and say Annette is you can actually feel their different frequencies and their different attitudes and their backgrounds. They offer a different avenue for Andrew to reveal different information. And Andrew talks about the altruistic aspect, and it's not about me being around him. It's what is me being here offers the best potential for the whole, for then passing the baton on to whoever comes next, you know? So we're all allies, we're all here together. You know, Andrew talks about not being on a pedestal. He's like a brother that's just got this talent, and we've got our own talents that perhaps we haven't revealed yet because we don't believe we have them, you know, because we co-create everything, you know?
And yeah, exactly. And that Wonder Woman shows where I said I wanted to work with the geniuses of the world. And it was, you know, getting to the authentic moment where I'm tired of those mired in mediocrity asking me the same galactic history question over and over again, or saying I don't know my purpose.
Yeah.
Okay? 3/4 of all callers should never ask the question, what's my purpose? They're fishing for an answer with an expectation. Okay?
Yeah, and the other thing with that is, say, I even know it now when I interact with people, because like the thing with being around Andrew is there's a lot of benefit I get in my frequency, because him, when he goes into that high frequency, it just activates you and you're in the field, you know? So that's what actually people don't realize. Like when he actually turns it on, you know, it's like holding on to a Lamborghini going full pelt, you know? And
yeah.
handlebars you got to hold on to.
Every call is recorded for a reason.
Yeah, because you don't remember everything in the moment, but he's given me the opportunity to actually develop that skill. Not that I didn't have it before, because I'm actually had a lot of privilege of interacting with a lot of very powerful people and
refining it.
But yeah, it's how you master it in the moment with all the variables. Because like it's funny, like people comment about some words I say and stuff, and I'm not worried about that. But it's you're actually processing so much. It's like you've got a broadband uplink in the moment, and you've got so many variables coming in, like maybe you might deal with 8 or 10 normally, and you've got 1,000 that you're dealing with in the moment. It's it takes a bit of strength and skill to be able to do that, because it is the infinite potential in everything all the time. So it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of strength. Developing like a certain muscle. Yeah.
See, you said it. I am the infinite potential at any given moment in time, because I'm a signature frequency of being in a time and no time, as an I am dreaming being, as part of, I stated over and over again since the very beginning. You all recognize that and see that in your own point and definition. I'm a standing wave frequency in time, and I'm going to continue to do 100, 200, 300, 500, 700 shows until I have 10,500 hours out there. I'm going to continue pushing my bulldozer forward. But as I understand, it's not just a global narrative that I'm working on. There's an unseen global narrative that is going on here too, because this show is about affecting 1, 2, 3, and 4 generations into the future. And when I can, 7 generations into the future. And most of the time I'm affecting 3 generations to 5 generations in the past. Not all the time, because there's some peckerheads in the 7 generations in the past that are the ones running the system of domination and control. It's learning how not to exchange energy with them in this interwoven system of exchange. It's just separating the sovereign from the unsovereign, the separation of densities.
Are you going to take callers, or you just want to chat with me, man?
We're going to take caller in just a little bit. I wanted to have a moment where people can see from behind the scenes, like you were saying before about, asking the altruistic questions. There is an infinite potential. There is, again, no other hosts that are doing call-in video shows, on their own self-produced, right? With the type of what I'm doing. Why? Because I'm in a whole new market and in a whole new level that's yet explored. I'm in the undiscovered country of broadcasting. I have my own TV studio over there. We can simulcast to multiple stations. And there's people out there listening that process that. Okay? Truly process that. And you look at very basic network marketing, not pyramid schemes or anything. It's the volume in which consumption is. When the volume of consumption matches the analytics is when you always have a viral outbreak of the material. Doesn't matter if you're talking about sticks and stones or multidimensional living. Same rule of analytics. And the audience members out there are ultimately what will also make this viral. You have listened to hundreds of questions, hundreds of hours of show. You have picked up some of the dots that Santo was asking about before. What are some of the common dots you've been seeing as you've reflected over this material over the years?
Yeah. The common dots is this radical concept that you say that our skin suit is the most advanced technology in the universe, and we're all just in this body and we're trying to survive in this reality. It's like that to me is what I may have done in the past, but what I do now is I would have seen where I'm at, and I would have heard you say that, and I would have gone, no bloody way, that's crap. You know what I mean? But now it's like, if that is the case, how do I get to access that? What's that? What's the journey to getting to that? And a lot of what I found is that what you've consistently said is that it's about self-mastery. Yep. What if you actually own that you are first? What do you create with that? And you had I was actually reflecting on this just while you were talking. The show last week, or on the 16th of September, the recent Saturday, your time, you had 3 really cool callers. You had a lady first that was really struggling with a lot of physical issues and in a pretty horrible relationship. And she was in the zone asking really good questions, for her perspective, which a lot of people are in that. If they're powerful empaths and compassionate, they can get themselves into trouble because people abuse that, They take advantage of it. And then you had this really cool jeweler from New York, and she asked the question that I've been actually waiting for, mate. It's about, you mentioned years ago about the 1 billion healers, and she actually added the answer is about healing yourself first, because my path, and I was thinking about this because we did the Schumann resonance conversation in May that got released, and that was pretty good because my attitude has always been to heal myself and then see what gets revealed, and that's been my path to accessing who I am, you know. So that's always been the key, mate. It's about first get the healing under control and then see what gets revealed, you know. That's sort of the theme I've really taken on board and integrated.
Yeah. And then we had that conversation over a couple months ago about all the things from 2013 and late 2012 that are coming out, you know, to be exactly what I said they would be. Like on the show I did with JP, the gold-wrapped, you know, fetuses that were coming out. All the little things that have come up that have reaffirmed the reality isn't really changing at the global narrative scale.
I actually, in one of the industrial era parts, there's 4 parts of that. I think 1 or 2 have only been released. And that's where the cathars and the obelisks components came from. I actually did images for that. What you said with JP, mate, in there. They haven't been released and they're a bit hard to take, but when you see it, like, because I remember I was in the chat room and listening to that show live with you two, or in the archives, and a link was passed around where in Thailand, you know, a guy was busted, this English guy in Thailand, you know. Yep. Pretty horrible, but you've said it and it's there, you know. And it's like, what if this is just a tip of the iceberg of the volume, you know? And like I actually said to someone just recently, like, you know, when you hear about events and stuff and tens of thousands are missing, you know, where are the bodies? It's going on all around us all the time, potentially, you know. I mean, you talk about the quarantine and stuff, but there's a lot of naughty beings out there that want their journey, you know, stuff like that. And that all comes back to owning our power, to me. Because why do they want to do this, you know? Why?
Exactly, because we're that potent, and we have that much potent of presence that they can harvest us energy seen and unseen. And it's a big strategy of long-term harvesting of our energies. If it's 1 ounce today and 9,000 ounces next year. Okay? Essence, your essence.
The other...
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, the other thing as well that sort of, you know, when I first came around you and heard your voice and was like, who is this guy? And I just started listening, and the common theme that I find is related to what you talk about in like the 2300 soul families or 2200, and you're a part of everyone. And then what was happening originally was that, you know, me as this individual over in Adelaide, Australia, I'm isolated alone. I'm in this remote sort of area to the Americas and stuff like that. What I heard in the people that were finding you is that it was very reassuring to hear these other people out there that were on their own journey. And I could sense there was something really special about all these people, you know. It's very courageous to actually call up live and be totally transparent to an infinite audience, potentially, with you reading them. But there is a real power that you get from doing that, from making yourself vulnerable, putting yourself out there, and having a lot revealed as you being the avenue for that. And I know a lot of people who sit on the sidelines of not wanting to do that, but you don't know what you might be completing for someone out there that has no idea that you're out there.
Each caller is a teacher. Each caller is a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time there when I was doing those 4 shows a week, 4 adventures in reality call-in shows per week. That was in early 2013. And the type of people that were calling in at that moment, that's where the CEOs, the businessmen, the movie stars, the rock stars, the football players, they all came from that little Revolution radio show. Okay, they were tuning into that little conspiracy radio station, trying to listen to me at 11 to 1. Sorry, at 10 to 12 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, 10 to 12, and then I moved 11 to 1.
It's an interesting place for Revolution Radio. It was just a phenomenal meeting place, that's for sure, and it was really raw at that time. And the funny thing was, mate, in early April of 2013, you were doing stream reads for an hour because no one would call. That was funny. It's like, I'm like, am I listening to this guy? Am I going crazy? And no one wants to actually ring this guy and ask him about anything. And it was funny. It was like the calm before the storm, because like you talked earlier on about me helping you out, and it was 3:30 between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m. my time, and the only reason I was there was that no one else would step up. Because you needed help. Like, just the variables of actually tuning in to someone anywhere on the globe on a radio station and reading them and giving them exactly what they need in the moment is like, just all those components together is phenomenal. And that's what I really love about you, mate, because, and that's why I've done the classic callers, because if you actually, like you talked about the pattern recognition, what you can see is that, you know, there's different species and origins of where people come from, and the common theme is where people are right now. It doesn't matter the variables of what got them here and stuff. It's what they're here for now and what they've gone through in just these recent couple of lives. And to me, I feel like I can feel the commonality with my path. I feel it. And so, you know, when you do a volume of sort of listening to Andrew and research, I call it a download phase, mate. And it's like reintegrating data for your perception sort of to get a basis from. And do you want to actually offer something about that? Because you can't sort of tell people what to do, but if people instinctively choose to do it, then you can explore it. It's you're not leading people.
I want
to actually choose it.
They have to actually choose it. Now, a lot of people come from different perceptions. So we have the contract revocations, which have their own reality level potency beyond my radio show. They get passed around, shared, emailed, so on and so forth. You have the variety of radio shows that I've done, themes, whether it's a call-in psychic show, a conversation about galactic history, a 20-part free series given out for galactic history, a 5-part paid series, a mystery school show, so on and so forth, ebooks, and then the radio shows that I've interviewed on, where people have come to interview me on their shows. So there's a wide variety of topics, because part of the representation of the Galactic Historian is I'm testing all of the signature frequencies out there of what genres have the awakened geniuses of their genre and ready to decompartmentalize the psychic structures that are around them by them generating themselves as self-illuminated masters to assemble Earth's greatest champions of what? The geniuses that can help us put together the greater pattern recognition of what? How to make the bulldozer work and not backfire. For everyone. I could easily put a stable of people together and do a variety of business things that would take this off into a different angle. I don't want to. I want to be self-generated, self-funded, with the natural organic evolution of the geniuses coming out of the woodwork. And they are here. Okay? The next level here is who's going to invest back into private mentorship with me, which in the audience want to take it to that next level. Okay? Is there somebody out there that wants to do 187 shows next year? Do you got the cojones, the nuts, the ovaries, and the ability to stay balanced and in contact with your own ceremonial self? Who wants to take up that challenge? That's
Andrew,
personal mentorship. Go ahead.
Something?
Yes.
One thing when you, Andre, and you were talking before, a couple of words that really struck was this potency of expression, the term potency of expression. And from my perspective, that seems to be a trigger that can work one way or another. And having listened to you for a number of years now, that potency has its own interface with me or anyone else, and it's unpredictable in terms of how it reacts. And to me, it's a bit like a modem. You know, If it doesn't sync, it just makes this awful noise and just keeps squeaking and squeaking. And so you have to kind of just hit the off switch. And that potency of expression can be a ceiling that requires the individual, me or anyone, to just take some time out and explore the shadow and explore why that ceiling is there and not make judgment of the potency of the expression of the messenger. And it's interesting because the volume, as Andre said, that comes down like a fiber optic channel can overwhelm in other words, the potency of that expression can be overwhelming and somewhat sometimes confusing, which is the individual, not the potency of the expression. So the level of being able to process is an individual discipline and an individual challenge and an individual application. And that seems to be sometimes the barrier to progress, the ability for all of us as individuals to put the time in to process the potency of expression in order to be able to take more and process more. And it's just like when you got a lot of homework when you're at school, it just keeps piling up and you start to get overwhelmed. It is kind of not falling into the trap of mystery school, hierarchical, oh, Andrew's got another show, I have to listen to it. Rather, tune in to the frequency and feel connected and feel like you're a co-creator and feel like it's meaningful and you don't go away from it feeling overwhelmed. Exactly. And sometimes that level of feeling overwhelmed can be very powerful, particularly if there's one or more people who are potent expressions of their truths. And I always find it interesting that when there's potent people in a room, anything can happen.
That's right. So a lot of times when I have, whether it's caller to caller or show to show, a certain potency level coming into the process with it. So as I was saying earlier, I peek into the future potentials of every show so I can scale my potency. I can have an unlimited amount of energy available and answer, you know, non-instant gratification questions that can confound and astound the greatest geniuses of this universe. I already know that. That's my purpose. And there'll be many more that follow after me when they understand the potency of presence conversation. It is how much of your spirit is in your DNA instrument of experience at this moment that is not using chemical memory makeup, meaning I'm in superluminal thought. I have an entire precognitive workforce of I am selves available to search the infinite record. And everyone else can do that too. You just got to believe in yourself. And when I'm choosing to be a potent presence, that means every word has an unseen value to it that can drive away, trigger, awaken, put back to sleep, because that potency of presence has triggers in the observer that have their own programs. What you were saying, it's hard for some people to get in because the potency is so much that they've never heard it and it drives them away, or it confounds and affounds them and they just become obsessive listeners. After a while, obsessive listening does translate into something. Or you have the others that are the drive-by listeners but can't carve out the date because each potency was enough to fill them up for that week. But it's also showing how small their gas tank is. Okay? You know, it's like having those cars from the 60s that got 5 miles to a gallon with a 15-gallon tank. You didn't go far, did you? I'm about people realizing they got to increase their gas tank, not only their fuel efficiency. You know, most people, to me, in my perception, have a 1-gallon tank. And you get about 6 miles to a gallon. Okay? That's the potency of your inspiration will determine the potency of your presence. In a metaphor, you know, just for today's show, I've got a 10,000-gallon tank. I get 3,000 miles to a gallon, and I'm only going 4,000 miles in the show. That's my level of potency of presence available right now. Each caller may step on the gas a little bit. You know, you've heard me say I most push 6 1/4 total percentage of what I can say on the show, because there isn't the language for much more of that, unless I laser focus myself to give a complete answer in that individually asked moment, because every caller adds a new set of global potentials. Again, I don't just operate at this scale. So every single caller has an unseen world that has a completely different unseen effect on the world. Like, there was one caller that called in 2015, and that individual caller, from my perspective, and it was just about a relationship, and honestly, just the person wanted out of a relationship, but that one caller had just a magnitude of impact on the unseen world from what was observing that gentleman calling in. And it made a gigantic, gigantic impact in thousands of soul families of what that one person learned on that one show. Okay? This is even greater than some of the great live shows that I did with Teal or some of the other ones. Each caller has the chance of revealing the unlimited point of view. And that is what my goal is for every show, to have enough potency of presence that if a genius steps forward with their potency of presence, that I have the long-term energy, endurance, and ability to give the exacting answer of that moment with a potent presence, so that the global narrative, seen and unseen, can be healed.
Yeah, my whole purpose of being around Andrew is to actually try and make him sweat.
Yep.
It hasn't worked yet. It's like I'm exhausted. Like, oh my god, you still can keep going. Holy crap, you know? Nah, just jokes. But
yeah.
I see the potential in Andrew, and it's like, it's the reason why I've sort of come back around him. Is I went through my whole journey of going away from him, and I realised what was out there, and it didn't challenge me in the way he did, and didn't form the patterns and the puzzle pieces, like the conscious Tetris that fits in all the time with the different layers. When I get a new perception in me as I develop me, then I can see what he was talking about, because there's this volume of data that honestly you have to actually do. I've tried to accelerate it and put the puzzle pieces together and made my whole documentary series to accelerate, but you still have to put the effort in, because it's about you. And it's not being a slave or anything, it's about the joy of awareness. Because once you get to the awareness and the knowingness, it's like Andrew talks about from his perspective, how actually easy it is to do what he does, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be able to do it for the volume that you do if it wasn't easy. But you have to actually, like for me, I actually do a lot of body work, a lot of healing. If I get the money for it, I go to my healer, Kevin Robb, and he smashes my ego if it's coming up, you know what I mean? He breaks down what's behind there, and I don't resist it anymore, you know. Originally I did, but I do a lot of physical work, like gym, and I do a lot of walking. Like I integrate the walkabout concept, I believe, from being in Australia and connection with the ancestors down here, and meditation, like mastering your thought patterns, like just really observing what thoughts come up. You can actually control them. And aligning your feelings with what they actually are, not what you're sort of being trained that they are as well. And once you sort of get in balance with them, then it becomes a place to be for me. And then the perceptions kick in, like the awareness and the dots that, you know, once you've integrated, say, a volume of Andrew's data, then you actually perceive. You don't need validation from someone.
Right. You know, the other thing about, you know, some of my reflections and all the recordings that I've done with you, there was a conversation we had where, you know, it was one of those ones we knew we weren't going to publicly put on air because of how I was stretching the individual reality. But at that moment in time, what I was going through, the passing of my very close friends, I needed to push my own internal envelope. And what ultimately came out of that was I can go from one extreme to the other with a seamless change, no matter what the conversation topic's about, seen or unseen. And it was a great giant reflection to me to see this repeated in the material over and over and over again. What the areas and avenues that I've explored, and the ones that, 99% of the audience wouldn't get.
Yeah.
Okay? Wouldn't get.
Yeah.
Unless they were traveled, experienced, learned personalities put their pattern recognition already together. It's not even about listening to my material, my lingo. It's all there.
Yeah. Like it's an interesting place to be from my perspective, because, like, say a lot of people actually find you and they're in real challenge in their existence, and anyone that's a healer, I honor them for that, because it's a very tough gig to be in, because it doesn't matter what's going on in your reality. You've got to be ready and professional and to deal with these situations at any time. And honestly, the tough ones will come when you're least wanting it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So there's a vigilance that you've got to be, you've got to be on top of your game, or step out, take a step back. Right. And that's where Andrew's role is really interesting. And I mean, to me, like, you talk about 2013 and there's 4 years that are gone. And it's like, we're here where we're at, and 4 years have gone, and all the, like, you talk about 1,500 hours of stuff being out there, and to me, it was just like, let's get on with this, what can be revealed by Andrew if like I said originally, it was like, what if I actually take the time and learn it and invest my time, because, like, I recognize my strengths, and that's the key, that people can actually identify what are your strengths first, and then what can you explore with those strengths. And I mentioned early on, I was in IT, and I used to read these big 1,000-page Microsoft sleep medicine, I call them, to do exams on Microsoft stuff, and my ability to push through all my barriers to actually absorb that stuff. It's a skill set. And right at that point, it was to achieve an exam result that I get a qualification that I could probably get more money or more responsibility in my IT stream. But my dedication to learning, I apply to now. And another thing I've sort of talked to Andrew about is, and I haven't released this with him, and I'm not sure how to, but we talked about my journey, where so I went from the 90s and being a DJ and stuff like that, and I learned all these skills of searching the internet, and then I took those skill sets into my IT role, and they formed the foundation of me being here around him with all the skills like IT to be able to make videos and stuff like that. So I feel a lot of people have actually got the components to be who they are here to be, but maybe they're not aware of that skill set that they developed in that time and how it applies at some future point. Because we're in linear time, but we're multidimensional beings, and we're in a reality that sort of, is a challenge to be in and stuff like that.
That's right.
Actually, Andre, what you say there, I think we've all had our moments in that fractal way of understanding what Andrew said before, of pushing our own internal envelopes and being a potent expression of our own internal frequencies and truth. And I'm sure all of us have those very real moments of pushing that internal envelope and then dealing with and recalibrating everything that happens as a result of that expression. And in a fractal way, I think the challenge is the challenge of how to push the own internal envelope. I had a conversation with Andrew last week on a call about how I popped the pimple without applying the antibiotic, and what to one person is pushing their own internal envelope of expression of potency may actually be a very, it's not damaging, but it's not a well-calibrated outcome that achieves what we initially aim to achieve. So potency is the key word. It's the careful management with discernment of that expression, but not being lazy about it. Because it's easy to just sit back and say, well, I tried that, then it didn't work, and my family hates me, and so I'm going to go into my shell now, and that's that. And they don't put the time into doing those fine-tuned adjustments of whether it's antibiotic or, you know, application, and then being that potent being and find the power within themselves to be their own internal envelope of expression of potency, again, with a little bit more discernment.
Mm-hmm. Now, something else to add in the potency of presence conversation. One of the people in the chat room was asking what else is going on in my mind as an exploration. When I'm listening, I'm focused, I'm disciplined. Every now and then a thought may pop into my head is, did I turn my oven off? Or, you know, some little strange thought like that. That's the programs inside me. I've conquered my programs. I wouldn't be doing this at this level if I didn't. So what else is going on? I'm listening. Do I know every word that's going to come out of my mouth? No. That's called flow. You don't know what every word that's going to come out of your mouth from a moment-to-moment conversation. But I also know that my knowingness expands and contracts and is refined based off of the signature frequency of the listener, my individual signature frequency, my potency of presence, which is an equation of how much I am in my body, how much I'm broadcasting this experience as an Akashic record experience, live as a direct experience in the unseen world too. So there's this unseen world light flashing process going on that is constantly telling me expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. Does it distract from this conversation? No, it amplifies this conversation. It's what puts potency into the auric fields of each person that wants to have access to that potency and not siphon my energy. Potency can be shared with words.
Yep. Straight to the core truth, mate. Take that, truth. But I got a bit of a perspective with what Santo offered before, and I get where you are, and I get what you do, and I get how good a being you are to the people around you, mate. Mm. But to me, all right, and this is because it's in a public space, and I do a lot of grid work and stuff like that. My inner core and how my inner core state is unbudgeable by any expression, anything external to me brings, especially like family and stuff. Like the core of me operating in this reality and doing what I do, if I don't own that and realize no one gives it away apart from me, then I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the stuff I actually do, because everything, a lot of stuff is done, and it may not actually be them as well, they're actually done to adjust you to your inner state, which can create an opening, say, in your energetic field and stuff like that for other potentials. And while there's an appreciation of the effect that you have, you don't have to be affected by what others do as well. You know what I mean? It's you're a good guy, and family relationships are in many instances the toughest thing. But if I get smashed by, say, my family and stuff, and then I go out and I'm being activated for some major work, then I'm potentially left a vulnerability that knocks me out of the game, you know, or knocks me and smashes me for 6 months, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just want to offer that, because the core of where you are, Andrew wouldn't be able to do what he does if he didn't master his core, you know. So you can actually hold it and not be affected. Right. That's not wrong.
Right. You know, I've practiced and put into practicing processing the stuff that you hear me talk about. You know, I have a term I call hack the hologram. And they're all techniques that anybody can buy with basic amount of money, services that are rendered all over the world, that if people applied in their own daily process, they could, again, learn to hack their own hologram. Medical-wise, healing-wise, you know, it's everything that I put into the course. And one of the things that I'm going to be offering next year is access to this hack the hologram process that I have, and that's private retreats with a low amount of people who want to go and have an experience that isn't ayahuasca, that isn't mushrooms, that isn't any of that, that is you putting yourself through the self-litmus test. Can you generate your mystical experience with your genius within and the practicing tools that are available? And what I have to hack the hologram is some pretty interesting stuff. Float tanks, hyperbaric chambers, deep on meditation, fire ceremonies, all in a span of a week. And we're not talking one hyperbaric chamber. We're not talking one float tank. We're talking 5 in a week of each. Who here has done 5 cranial sacral therapies, 5 flotation tanks, and 5 hyperbaric chambers in a week? None of you have. I have done it for years in a row. I know what it does to the body. I also know what it'll do one experience versus those people that go back and back and back. Like in ayahuasca, you don't do 1 round. If you go and do 1 round, there's something missing. You're supposed to do 5. Same thing when it comes to these other experiences. It confirms and affirms the purging process and all the things that are learned through the coping skills. Everything that goes on in a psychedelic experience can be recreated by the mind without the chemical processing to enter superluminal space through the deep intake of oxygen, through the reduction of the cranial sacral process and the cranial pulse being shared to the rest of the tailbone. That right there alone gives you the mystical experience. It's a matter how you're going to choose to process it. And I'm at this scale of I want to offer it to everyone, but obviously you can't give it away for free. Can't. So if I were to put out a $5 or a $10 or a $12,000 price, oh, the shock that would come out. But I could go on tour with it, and those that are truly dedicated to it can have the experience and then learn to franchise it. Okay? I'm not even talking to like the pull out the whole bag of the hack the hologram tricks. In all techniques you can take and do at your own home for your daily practice to hack your own hologram or to fortify your hologram against whatever's going on in your life. I know my system works. It's proven itself over and over again. So Andre, you know, how has it really worked for you? You know, when you begin applying and integrating, you know, some of the teachers, and I'll have the same question. Go ahead. For Santo.
Yeah. I can reflect on maybe the second half of 2015 because I actually went away from you, and then a lot of stuff happened, and I was actually involved in, and it's probably too big to actually share on a public stage, or there's other variables with that. But what I did is I reviewed where I was with what you're offering and stuff, and I actually went through this really intense exploring healing stage. Like I would go and see my healer and get really massively deep tissue massages, and it would take me a week to recover. You know, they were so deep and heavy, just like getting rid of energy from my meridians and stuff, where you just have to really go hard. You know, there's no escape from it potentially on some levels. And I would go back week after week or fortnight after fortnight to go back on the table and potentially go into that situation, which I was choosing hardship. But in that also time, I integrated your first 5 revocations, you know, the banking, the divine masculine, feminine, and media and government. And I would do them maybe 5 times a week. And it would take me half an hour to read. And I'd go, it wouldn't actually just be sitting in my home. I'd actually go on this sort of small pilgrimage to a really special spot in my city that really gave me a lot of meaning, and I'd do it, and I'd get in the intent to do it before I went. So it was a really big dedication of effort. And then finally what happened later in the year, November, December, after sort of 5 or 6 months of really doing this and investing in myself and really committing to it, I actually saw like me in a past life as a sort of golden child. And the other thing I really got from that was, you talk about the mantle responsibility. I actually got my reality authority out of that. All right.
Beautiful.
And this goes back to sort of the weather and stuff like that. And many of the things that people can actually choose is that we're actually the ones that have the authority here. We just haven't stepped up and accepted that. And what happens if you do? What happens to your world? And I was sort of like the mystery school, like shaman to Santo there, and the key is, if you have that level of responsibility, what happens if you do get affected? You know, there's this fine line that you can walk and stuff, and it requires a responsibility, but it's a really great place to be, because it's like you with your perceptions, that's your real skill set, and that's how you operate as well, mate. So I mean, got a bit of an echo, but the reality authority is what I got from really dedicating myself to sort of what you're doing, because it goes back to what I found with, you mentioned Project Atlas, where we gave away our sovereignty. I was like, man, what if I actually did? What do I need to do to gain it back, you know? And that was what got revealed to me back then. And then there's been a process since then, which has been 18 months. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey with me, mate.
Outstanding. Santo, what has it been for you that you've been able to apply and integrate over the teachings over these years? What's the big things you've learned?
Well, the first big one was the early days of Chris Hales. We were actually driving and listening and just absolutely thinking, this is amazing information. But at the early stages, it was more cerebral information. The actual integration process was an ebb and flow in terms of, I see it as a very complex process that, like an onion, you know, you take one layer off and suddenly there's another layer that's a little bit dirtier than you thought, and it's getting the balance between the integration process of that unfoldment. The biggest challenge I found was I always was seen as the one with the tinfoil hat, so the credibility level was kind of dubious, but also, as you've always said, humour is the great dissipator of dense energy. So wearing the tinfoil hat slightly off balance in those conversations created opportunities for humour, whilst at least being able to share some of this information. Mm-hmm. But what I found was the more you go into your own internal envelope and expression of potency, it actually gives off a frequency that can be quite intimidating to people who think they see you as the person with the tinfoil hat at an odd angle, and they don't like it when you become the expression of potent frequency. So it's a juggling act. I just find it has its moments of pure joy and moments of absolute lonely feeling as though you're distancing yourself from those you love, and trying to understand the entanglement of agreements, soul agreements. So I find the revocations and the attunement of those revocations to understand those entanglements and to not go into, holes of what could be depression at times, because love is such a potent thing that holds these entangled strings in this real mesh of like cables, electrical cables that you just can't sort out. And I have found that it comes with both always. It's balance and being gentle with spirit. My middle name is impatience, and that's what I feel I'm learning. And I've had some very, very hard lessons along the way of how to deal with that. But I feel that balance is the key, and holding love and being gentle is something that I learn on a daily basis through these, experiences from the learnings. But the basis of those revocations and the basis of the material is such a good return to home base to recalibrate and then go out again and maybe put the tinfoil hat on, put it away for a moment. That can be quite intimidating for friends, because when they see you, they expect you to be a bit of a clown with some of the latest conspiracy theories, and they find it quite humorous to talk to you. But when you become yourself, and you don't make excuses for yourself, that can be interesting.
Beautiful.
And I've lost friends along the way.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully put. You know, one of the things I was joking with my producer Robert earlier, that I was going to come out on the event stage in a whale costume. little jokes like that, and that you know, or I would wear a tiger costume or something like that from like the TV show The Cats, and to show us a teaching. One of the shows that I did with Natalie was the sunglasses show. Sunglasses on, sunglasses off, sunglasses on, sunglasses off, showing how different people are triggered from different forms of perception. Right now, there has somebody that has logged into this chat room, has listened to my first voice, judged what I've said, and turned off. They are the 10-second viewers. Analytics show all of the 10-second viewers. Then the analytics also show what I call the drive-by listeners, the 90% of the audience that is here for whatever length of time they're going to be, the average view duration, before they can take no more of that potency of presence. The audience members that are here to learn, stick around for the potency of presence, for all that the show comes, all the show brings. If somebody can't handle the first 5 minutes of the potency of presence, are they a signature frequency match for the show? And this goes out to both Andre and Santo.
I know this is a thing that I'm quite aware of, Andrew, is that a lot of powerful beings don't know the effect of their energy field on others as well. And it's usually you're a healer and you don't know it, or you operate with a bit of a broadband upgrade to the source and stuff like that. And what happens is that by being your frequency, you can actually draw out the shadow in people. You can rise the shadow out of their shadow, and they come into their awareness, and then they project their shit at you because you're the one that's triggering it in them.
That's right.
It's not about the personal responsibility. So that's what I was going back to about owning your core, because when this stuff gets triggered and it comes out in people because they're in your energy field, you know it's not you. So then you can actually focus in on that individual and what the actual source of that issue is. And you can negate their emotional energy, because for me, my emotional power is my core. Like, I don't give that away to anyone. It's like my sustenance, and it's like all the propaganda, media and stuff like that. They trigger it in people, and then they harvest it, and then they redirect it through the ley lines to other areas of the world to maybe empower military equipment sort of stuff to smash Earth in a rising area there. So maybe you want to share that, mate, or your perspectives on that. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience that don't realize that that's who they are, because they don't own their power and stuff, and they have an effect on people, and because they're empaths, they accommodate the crap, you know?
Right. You know, and I'll be frank, and I was giving you the gas tank expression before. The potency of presence I have at any given moment it could make people shit their pants, literally. It make them pee themselves if I wanted to go that high. Why? I could make a chemical reaction in people. How many times have you all heard me do a random swear line where I'm really trying to enforce a statement and you feel chills up your spine? Am I stepping on your journey when I do that? No, I'm being my potent, present person, and you all are in your discerning, empathic natures. And I'm operating at the galactic macro volts, where many of us are still trying to perceive at the earth microvolts. But when I make authentic, potent statements, and I'm intending to do that for extended periods of time, it isn't about you that are listening. It's about the unseen world. And each and every person that comes here has an unseen audience. There was a question in the chat room, was what else is going on? Well, outside of this layer of perception is a whole unseen reality radio show, video with things that are going on that are resolving karmic unique synchronicities in another layer of reality. Every TV and radio show actually does that. I'm just managing it live in my duality, non-duality simultaneously. And it does not affect this part because I'm not in competition with that. We are in equal co-creation, and we're all trying to better the blueprint of equation that's here, which is the living algorithm of life. Yeah. That's
The other thing, mate, is you know, you say nothing's going to happen and stuff, and like no one external is going to save us. We're the ones that are on the air to do the work. We chose it. We're the ones who've gotten through the incarnation grid, and we are the ones. And that's the key. It's like if you're having an effect on people, it's because you're probably a part of that. You know.
Not to mention, not to mention, there's the bigger global aspect. I say nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change the global narrative, short of earthquakes, hurricanes, and war. It's the only thing that actually affects the global narrative. There's no place for you to petition to change the global narrative. They're all controlled by unseen hands and voices. That is what doesn't change. If the global narrative doesn't give full acknowledgement to other sentient beings, the dogs, the cats, the whales, the tigers, the dolphins, that's the global narrative too. They have just as much input on this reality as we do. We can no longer see us as the apex of hierarchical species on this world. That's a global narrative too. And when I say nothing is happening tomorrow, because the global narrative accepting of other sentient beings isn't being brought forward as an agenda of multidimensional beings sharing multidimensional awareness with the reins of broadcasting and the responsibility to broadcast with reins and controls and systems and all of the different marketing things that are out there.
Like, go on, Santo.
Sorry, that level of expression, it seems to resonate when you get into the zone or into that frequency, whether it's on a show like this or talking to like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
What I find the challenge is when you appear to be like the M-way calling person that nobody really wants to answer the door to, even though you are offering a very high quality product. And someone may say, oh, answer the door, because they could have something new to offer, but most people are going, oh no, not the M-way person again. And getting labelled as someone who makes people's heads hurt isn't always a productive way to engage, let alone co-create. So the balance between the beer and pizza expression and social interaction that can still be in that state, yet not at the potent expression in the consciousness of the being that you're engaging with, can sometimes still be just as effective. The difficulty is I tend to start to go into an expression that makes their head hurt, and they feel that you become the M-way person next time, and you're not necessarily ridiculed, but
I can very much associate with that, because what is this show? It's network marketing without a pyramid product. I was just having this talk with Robert, my producer, just before the show, and you're showing it right there. You know, it's a network marketing, literally. You're the network. All you listeners are the network. And the marketing is a network marketing process. You're here to consume what? Not a diet pill and Andrew. For what reason? Whatever it is that you're getting out of it. I know I'm a signature frequency teacher of the moment, seen and unseen. I accept my part in the plan, and I have no competition with whatever the plan is. You know, Andre was saying before about, there are people that, come close to me and their shadow gets overturned. You're right, it does. I'm a high frequency being even when I'm sleeping. I'm a high frequency being when I'm not doing these radio shows. I do my own laundry. I let my sink fill up with dishes for 3 or 4 days, like a bachelor. Okay? I vacuum my own floors. I drive my own car. I pay my own taxes. I do all those other things that everyone else does too. And I'm never not a high frequency being. I chose to live this way. But I also chose to be a singularity that has a duality expression that is a part of my signature frequency of experience. Because if you're not actually here in the experience as a connected I am being, the external beings up there who think they are no better than the I am beings are no better than the beings of control. That's why I manifested here. To be an infinite source in the body, to say, yes, I've done it. And I'm here right now, motherfuckers. I'm not up there anymore. I'm not external.
I've actually told species off for trying to influence down here because they haven't chosen to be here on the ground. You have to be on the ground and in human form to actually have an effect, you know. But yeah, It's interesting. Sorry, Santo.
No, but what you just said, I think, is the pinnacle of what messes with people's head, particularly if they're immersed in the love and light brigade, because it seems to, in a you could say spiritually, politically correct environment, the incongruence of driving your own car and leaving 3 days of dishes in the sink with high frequency would start a barrage of spiritual judgment.
Oh, it did already. Oh, you should see the emails that I wore about my shaman's vest with a little piece of animal fur on it. Oh my God, it was vicious.
Exactly. And this is the challenge, is to be able to let that be what it is without it coming back in a frequency that you feel you need to say something. Sometimes nothing said is the most potent internal envelope of expression, to let the person see their judgment. It's their judgment. It's very, very difficult. I find that extremely difficult to carry because my mouth tends to open when it maybe could just be silent and let the person see for themselves.
Just perceive their polarity, mate. Because if they're totally polarized, they're not going to budge, and all you do is feed it. It's like, why do I invest my energy in engaging in this? You know, it's like, I'm more precious than anything I know. It's like, I don't need to. I don't deserve this. I don't have to go through this. You know, you just negate it. Because when people get really polarized, it's like an umpire making a call in a sport game. They're not going to change their call. You know.
Right. So you know, whenever I get the veganism conversation that comes up, oh, the polarity and the death threats that come, it's really funny. You told someone to eat meat, you are evil. And then the death threats come. Oh yeah, I get death threats frequently because I don't believe in what they want them to believe in. You know, I get
careful, Andrew. I'm a vegan. Andrew,
yeah, but you're not a judgmental one. There's a difference.
You haven't met me.
Okay. It just takes one to screw up the whole batch for everyone else. And the same thing that goes for us carnivores or omnivores. There we go. Thank you, Robert. You know, one other aspect with potency of presence, there are these individual times where I want to do things on individual shows and really chart an advanced course, but there isn't a seen avenue to get people to where my levels of perception, because there's so much context that needs to be understood. And when Andre and I prepare for these shows, I always say, what's the context so I can explain the teaching? Like with these weather shows, there's a context to understand, so you can understand that the weather is our collective and our uncollective. You know, there are other shows that if there was an advanced amount of context, like revealing of the galactic history to remind us that we are sovereign, you know, co-creating beings, that we're the founders of our species from the founders of founders. So each layer revealing different levels of the importance of the genetic structures here, which are vastly different from other places. but I end up getting the conspiracy questions. Why don't you agree with what David Icke said, or somebody else said this, and can you confirm and affirm what other people have been saying? No, I don't really care what any of the other ones say. I don't listen to them. Most of them are fear porn sellers to me. That's the way they're choosing to do their marketing. They're not, most of them don't have any practice of spiritual hygiene whatsoever.
Yeah. The other thing, I mean, your show must be coming to an end soon and stuff like that. So the videos that I sort of do with Andrew, it's trying to offer a theme perspective, as in a theme as a puzzle piece or a component of, say, pattern recognition and what you might know. So say this weather stuff that Andrew's been talking about, that there's only 2 released and there's a few more out there. What if, well, the basis of, say, using the weather is applying a component that we're all aware of and taking it further, taking it into components that you might not have awareness of. But when you hear Andrew offer them, it's like it's funny, like, it never ends. It's like you hear you in your perspectives, and it becomes so obvious that that's what it is, you know. But until you said it, it was like there's this great mystery going on, and I don't get it. So maybe just see what you're aware of the weather with this, and see the components that were just outside of your awareness that Andrew feels in. And what you can do is you can actually train yourself, if that's a metaphor, or this industrial age that went on before, or some of the other stuff that I've done with him, that there's this component just beyond what you can see, and it's there, and you feel it, and you're drawn to it. What if you actually complete that circuit without Andrew and have a perception, test yourself, and then when you hear it, it's like, oh, that I was off, but I was in the ballpark, you know what I mean? The key is we're the ones that have the power, and you can actually use everything to train yourself, you know? So, I mean, that could be a component with this stuff. And with all the videos that we do, it's just we're trying to offer the themes to integrate and then take it to the next level, like that Schumann resonance one in May that I mentioned. Because to me, I mentioned my path, that I got into meditation and all this stuff. I didn't actually go and explore doing a Reiki course and stuff like that. I've actually gone back, like there was a lady that worked in New York doing diamond work last week, and she actually finally asked you the right question about that. It's about me doing the healing, and then me as the healer gets revealed, you know? So it's that reverse engineer of what's going on.
Exactly. The reverse engineering of what's going on. You know, I just saw a question from the chat room. How many millions of years have we had? How can we comprehend all of it in just 2 hours? You can't. It's a process, not an event. So it takes pattern recognition. So I'm going to throw that question out to both you guys. How can you do it in 2 hours? And the big answer is you can't. But what can you do in that 2 hours to assist the long-term process? Santo?
In 2 hours, what I feel, I go into a zone, for want of a better word, that allows all of those programs that say I can't process different layers simultaneously, I can't be in these spaces, to dissipate and not come back like a home of voice. So the distractions, I feel, being in the country away from those city distractions helps. But the next layer is that self-discipline to choose not to be distracted, to choose to put the effort in, to just breathe and listen and process. So I think it's an enormous amount that can happen, because an aha moment can happen at any moment.
Exactly.
I find in these kind of conversations, often there's many aha moments. It's just a matter of being awake to see the aha moment happening and not have a program or some other distraction take it away from you, even though it's happened. So I've had quite a few today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's outstanding. That's those aha moments. Andre, and same question to you. You know, you can't do it all in 2 hours, but what can you do in that 2 hours?
Yeah, it's like there's a volume of exploration in 2 hours. Definitely doesn't cut it, but be open to everything being possible, everything, because like and Santo said was that the programs kick in and one program might be no way, and then to the scale of things going on, it might be considered that you're just this minute component to it, and what can you do? Well, those are sort of things that you can shut down and just accept that this might be going on, but maybe accept that the scale of what's going on is required to negate who we are as our power and realize everything that's been thrown at us is just to stop us from accepting who we are, you know? So if you actually just allow yourself to explore and just see what you get, you know, and maybe revisit that 2 hours that you explored at another point, because your layers kick in. So that's sort of what I feel, mate.
Okay. You know, from my perspective, what can you learn in these 2 hours? You could have the potential of perceiving the unlimited point of view. For those of you who've been watching the Living the Mystical Life Daily webcasts, you hear me say that quite frequently. The unlimited point of view is your journey to the unlimited point of view, of what it takes to remove your limitations that limit your points of view and potentials you can create at any moment. At any moment, we can make a no-time choice to be in time and be in 100% sovereign action. So infinite potential and unlimited point of view is actually potentialized within us, and we can make choices without the obfuscation of our limitations to truly see what can happen. Just one aha moment could be 100 years of change in each person. I know that last show we did with the caller, with that first caller that was having the boyfriend with autism and narcissism, that helped a lot of women out there both find closure as well as finding a new avenue of way for them to see themselves. So that caller opened up a huge line of potential for many different people. Each and every show, I am looking for the unlimited point of view. And the second the caller gives me the single string of potential that I can take to the unlimited point of view, I will. And that's that potency of presence that may drive some away because, again, tinfoil hat scenario, I'm just an Amway salesman to them. There is somebody that's logging in right now and says, damn it, he's an Amway salesman and logging out, as well as someone else who's going to now be a lifelong fan because I just said Amway salesman, because it connected something humorous within their own mind or the nature of the callers that have been here. Each and every show is its unique pattern and representation. There is a dream weave going on here too. You know, I've thought about doing the dream show, which is revealing what's happening in the unseen world, but there's no context to it. You'd all need 20 hours of show context for me to do 10 minutes of unseen world stuff, for you to understand what that would be about. Well, maybe I could do more than 10 minutes. Maybe I could do 40 minutes, but there would have to be lots of hours of preparation, and just like preparing for like one of those IT tests that Andre was talking about. That has to be in your awareness when that show comes up. Contextual awareness. And once you have contextual awareness, I can make unlimited point of view, you know, as common as table salt with the iodine in it. The charge, the polarity, all that stuff that is needed to drive forward a hologram so that your bulldozer can go 3 generations into the future. My bulldozer is aiming for 50 generations in the future. That's the game that I'm playing here, the long-term game. I've beat the system already. Now can I beat it the next 20 generations? That's my test. And I already know what I can do. Now it's a matter of who's going to determine, can they beat the next 20 generations of the way the system's affecting them? Here's the blueprint. Apply your consciousness to it. Conscious application of the sacred. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Andre, Santo, thank you for both calling in.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
To learn more about Andrew's courses, including the Hacking the Hologram teaching series coming this October, go to andrewbartzis.com.
Each different bubble of reality is true. A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma. Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.